I stood at my own father's funeral, and my relatives whispered that I had only returned for my inheritance. My brother didn't even hide his disdain. But when the lawyer pulled out a small USB stick and said that my father had recorded a private video for me, I realized that my entire childhood, our entire truth, everything I believed about my family, was a lie, and the one who lied was standing right in front of me. I'm Emma Williams, 32 years old, female, and I swear my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the damn rose I was holding when I stepped up to my father's graveside. I hadn't been home in 8 years, hadn't seen most of these people in just as long, but every pair of eyes felt like a knife, whispering, staring, tracking me like I was some stray dog wandering into a country club. And then there was Lucas, my older brother, 35, male, the golden child, the heir, the one who somehow always managed to turn his bullshit into my fault. He didn't even try to hide his smirk when I walked up. Just leaned toward Aunt Carol like he was commenting on the weather, and said, loud enough for me to hear, "Of course she came. Someone told her there's money involved." I should have kept walking. I should have pretended I didn't hear. But the words hit harder than I expected, like they'd been waiting years to find a soft spot. I stopped mid-step, felt my throat lock up, and for a second I thought I might actually cry, right there between the headstones. It wasn't just the insult. It wasn't even the familiarity of it. It was the fact that he sounded confident, like he truly believed it. Like he didn't remember the childhood we had, like he didn't remember me at all. See, my father, William Roberts, wasn't just some cold businessman, not to me. Growing up, he was the guy who'd wake me before sunrise, with hot chocolate in a thermos and a whispered, "Come on, Em. The fish are biting." I used to think those early mornings on the lake were just ours, something he and I shared because he actually liked being around me. Back then, he'd tell me stories about every property he built and say things like, "You see something in the world that isn't there yet. That's what matters most." And Lucas, he'd complain the whole time, act bored, ask when we were going home. Dad would roll his eyes and keep casting his line. But somewhere along the way, everything flipped. After I chose art school over the family business, Dad became distant, critical, quick to remind me that passion doesn't pay the bills and that the Roberts name didn't survive on little drawings. I kept trying to prove myself. I sent him photos of every exhibition I was in, every gallery show, every mural. I told myself the silence meant he was busy, not disappointed. Meanwhile, Lucas was at his side every day, shadowing him, absorbing the business like a sponge. And now here I was, at the funeral of the man I thought I'd eventually win back, and my brother acted like I only came for the scraps. I didn't know yet that a single USB drive in the lawyer's pocket was about to burn Lucas's entire little kingdom to the ground. I should have left right after the burial. Honestly, every instinct in me was screaming to get back in my rental car, drive straight to the airport, and forget this whole trip ever happened. But then the lawyer, Mr. Dorsey, this thin, tired-looking man, in a charcoal suit, approached me with this expression that made my stomach drop.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
"Emma," he said softly, like he was afraid I'd bolt. "Your father left something specifically for you. I'd like to meet this afternoon, if you're available." Lucas overheard. Of course he did. He spun around like a shark smelling blood. "What could he possibly have to say to her?" he snapped, stepping between us. "If it's about the will, we can handle it together." Mr. Dorsey didn't flinch. "Actually, Lucas, this isn't addressed to you." For a second, just a heartbeat, Lucas's carefully curated mask cracked. His jaw tightened. His eyes went glassy and sharp. He looked like someone had yanked on a string connected to all his insecurities. And then just as quickly he smoothed it over, forced a smile, and clapped Mr. Dorsey on the shoulder a little too hard. "Well, I'll be there anyway," he said. "It's family business." "No," the lawyer said gently but firmly. "It isn't." I could practically feel the temperature drop. I swear Lucas's eyes flicked to mine with this venom I hadn't seen since we were teenagers, back when he caught me reading Dad's architectural books and tore out the pages so I wouldn't embarrass myself trying to understand them. He walked away stiffly, whispering to Aunt Carol again. And the look she gave me? Like I'd arrived with a detonator strapped to my chest. By the time I met Mr. Dorsey at his office, my nerves were shredded. I sat in this polished conference room that smelled like lemon cleaner, staring at old black and white photos of my father on the walls, him breaking ground on his first development project, him shaking hands with partners, him beaming proudly at that stupid ceremonial shovel. He was younger in those photos, happier. Before all the tension, before the distance, before he stopped returning my calls. Mr. Dorsey set a small black USB drive on the table, like it was made of glass, and said, "Your father recorded this 2 weeks before he passed." My breath caught. He recorded something for me? My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. "Yes," he said, "and he was adamant it go only to you." My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I didn't know what I expected. A final lecture maybe, a last, "you should have come home." But when he clicked the file open, I saw my father's face fill the screen. Not businesslike, not stern, just tired and sad. And suddenly the room felt too small. Emma, he began, voice low and heavy, if you're watching this, then I didn't get to you in time. I froze. In time for what? He lifted a stack of printed emails into frame. Emails addressed to him, from me. Every update I'd ever sent, every photo of my murals, every new exhibition announcement. And he said something I'll never forget. I never saw these. Your brother made sure of that. I swear I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone reached into my chest and squeezed everything tight, all at once. On the screen, my father, William Roberts, the man I thought had chosen Lucas over me, rubbed his forehead like the weight of the world was sitting on it. I started to notice things, he continued. The missing letters, the silence between us, the way you seemed to stop reaching out, and the way Lucas always had an excuse ready when I asked about you. A cold shock ran through me. He asked about me? He wanted to hear from me? Mr. Dorsey paused the video when he saw me shaking. Emma, I can stop this if... No, I said, voice cracking. Let's keep it going. The video resumed, and Dad was holding a report, stapled, highlighted, with those yellow flags sticking out. 6 months ago, I hired a private investigator. He said it so casually, like it wasn't a bomb going off in my memory. Lucas had been handling much of my correspondence, Dad said. He told me you weren't interested in reconnecting. He said you told him you didn't want to be part of this family anymore, that you didn't want the burden. My throat went raw. I had never said anything like that, not even close. Dad looked down, eyes glassy. When I saw the proof, the deleted emails, the intercepted mail, the messages he never gave me, I realized how badly I'd failed you. I felt something inside me crack open. All those years I'd spent wondering why I wasn't enough, why he never acknowledged anything I did, why every attempt at reaching out fell into a void. It wasn't a void, it was Lucas. Dad took a long breath on the screen, like it physically hurt him to keep talking. I should have come to you right away, he said. I planned to. I booked a flight for next month. I wanted to sit across from you and tell you I was sorry, but my doctors told me I may not have that long. He closed his eyes briefly. So I made arrangements. I changed my will, and I made sure Lucas couldn't undo it. When the video ended, I couldn't speak. My nails were digging into my palms so hard there were little crescents of white skin. Mr. Dorsey slid a folder toward me. This is the PI report. It documents everything Lucas did. Your father wanted you to see the truth for yourself. I opened the folder, and the evidence hit me like a fist. Screenshots of my emails in the trash folder of Dad's email account. A text from Lucas to Dad. She doesn't want to come home. Stop wasting your energy. A voicemail transcription. Lucas telling someone to filter anything she sends until Dad gets over this pathetic nostalgia phase. And then, a single page that made my vision blur. A plane ticket. My father's name. A departure date 3 weeks after his death. He really had been coming to find me. I pressed the folder to my chest and felt years of resentment, confusion, and grief swirl into something I couldn't name yet. Something sharp, dangerous, and rising fast. For the first time in my life, I felt the beginnings of actual, righteous fury toward my brother. And I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. I left the lawyer's office feeling like the ground underneath me had shifted. The world just felt wrong. Like the colors were off, like gravity wasn't working the same way. I got into my car and sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at my father's plane ticket. He was coming to me. He was actually coming. And Lucas made sure I never knew. By the time I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, the big Roberts property mansion Lucas now practically lived in, I wasn't thinking straight. I don't even remember turning off the engine. I just remember the slam of the car door and the pounding in my ears as I marched up the walkway. The front door opened before I even knocked. Lucas stood there, pretending he wasn't startled. Emma, he said coolly, like he was greeting a delivery driver. You look shaken. I pushed past him. Why? I said, voice trembling. Did you lie to Dad about me? He laughed, actually laughed, and shut the door behind us. Oh, God. Dorsey showed you whatever fantasy Dad cooked up before he died, didn't he? I knew he might try something dramatic. I turned on him. It wasn't dramatic, it was the truth. Lucas's jaw tensed for a split second before he looked away and busied himself at the bar cart, pouring himself a drink with hands that were just a little too shaky. You think I sabotaged your relationship, he muttered, clinking ice into the glass. You seriously think I would do that? Emma, come on. Dad was losing it near the end. No, I snapped. He hired a private investigator. I saw everything. The deleted emails, the messages you blocked, the lies you fed him. That's when he completely cracked. Lucas slammed the glass down so hard, amber liquid splashed across the counter. He spun toward me, eyes wild. I did what I had to do, he screamed. The sheer force of it made me flinch. You left, he shouted, pointing at me like an accusation. You walked away from the business, from the family, from everything he built? And I stayed. I cleaned up the mess, I became the son he needed, and suddenly, after years, you think you get to come back and take over? His voice echoed through the hall. I protected what's ours. No, I said, voice low. You protected yourself. For a moment, he just stared at me, breathing hard, face flushed, hands twitching like he didn't know what to do with them. Then he grabbed a framed photo from the console table, one of Dad fishing at the lake, and hurled it across the foyer. It shattered against the wall, glass raining down like sharp glitter. "This is my house," he shouted, chest heaving. "Dad wanted me to run things." "Funny," I whispered, because that's not what his video said. Everything went still. He knew exactly what I meant. I'd hit the nerve. "Get out," he said, suddenly quiet and deadly, "before I make you." I walked out without another word, but as I reached my car, one thought burned hotter and clearer than anything else. I wasn't going to let Lucas rewrite the story of our father. Not anymore. I didn't know it yet, but I just stepped into the moment the whole internet would later come for. The moment the noose started tightening around Lucas's perfect little world. I barely slept that night. I kept cycling between the PI report, the video, and the image of Lucas screaming as he threw that picture of Dad at the wall. By morning, something inside me had settled. Not calmly, not gently, but like lava cooling into solid rock. I wasn't done. And Lucas sure as hell wasn't prepared. The next day, I met with Mr. Dorsey again, this time in the large conference room, with a full legal team present. Not just for the will reading, but because Lucas had demanded it. He wanted to contest everything preemptively. He didn't know I'd already seen what Dad left behind. When I walked in, Lucas was pacing like a feral animal. His hair was disheveled, his tie half undone, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept either. He looked at me with something between fury and panic. "Sit," he snapped. I sat, calm, controlled. He hated that. The lawyer started reading the will, methodically, professionally, and Lucas leaned forward with the smug expression of a man convinced he already knew what was coming, until he didn't. "Upon my passing," Mr. Dorsey read aloud, "I leave 60% of Robert's properties to my daughter, Emma Williams." It was like watching a car crash happen in slow motion. Lucas's jaw dropped. His breath hitched. His face turned the color of spoiled milk. And then he laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "No," he said. No, Dad wouldn't. She left. She abandoned everything. She doesn't deserve..." Mr. Dorsey cleared his throat and continued. "To Lucas Roberts, I leave the remaining 40%. Lucas jerked to his feet. "This is a joke. Dad didn't trust her with his company. He trusted me. This is fake." "It's notarized," Mr. Dorsey replied. "Recorded, filed, legal." Lucas slammed his fists on the table, rattling water glasses. "You manipulated him," he hissed at me. "You came crawling back at the end, and he fell for it." "He reached out to me," I said. "You blocked it." One of the attorneys placed a folder in front of him, the PI's compiled evidence. Lucas ripped it open, scanned the first page, and went completely silent. The room held its breath. He sank into his chair, shoulders collapsing, staring at the photos of his lies laid out in front of him. For a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Not guilt, not remorse, but fear. Real, bone-deep fear. And then the next blow landed. Mr. Dorsey slid another envelope across the table to me. "A separate bequest," he said. Inside was a letter from Dad. Not a video, not legal paperwork. Handwritten, personal. "Emma, I built an empire with integrity. I want you to run it with the same. And I want you to build the art foundation we talked about years ago. Yes, I remember. I always did. You saw the world in color when I only saw numbers. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand you were right. Love, Dad." I pressed the letter to my chest. Lucas stared at me like he'd been stabbed. Then he exploded. He grabbed a glass paperweight off the table and hurled it at the wall. It shattered, scattering shards across the floor. The attorneys jumped back. One yelped. Lucas was panting, pacing, muttering obscenities. "You don't deserve any of this," he spat. "It should have been mine." His meltdown was so volatile that security was called to escort him out. As he was dragged from the room, he twisted toward me and yelled, "This isn't over, Emma. I'll burn this place down before I let you take it." I sat there, shaking, but steady. I knew what he meant. And I knew something even more important. That was his first mistake. The next would be so much worse. Lucas didn't go quiet after being dragged from the conference room. If anything, he doubled down. Like someone poured gasoline on every insecurity he's ever had and handed him a match. By the next morning, he'd already launched his first attack. I woke up to 30, missed calls from unknown numbers. Voicemails from investors, business partners, even a journalist, all saying some variation of, "I heard you forced your father to rewrite the will on his deathbed. Care to comment?" My stomach dropped so fast it felt like falling through the floor. Lucas had started a rumor campaign. He told people I manipulated Dad while he was weak and confused. He claimed I showed up only for the money. He even implied I'd pressured the legal team into rewriting documents. It was ugly, petty, vicious, and very, very Lucas. But he overplayed one massive thing. He used company email servers to blast his little smear campaign to dozens of people. Company servers I now controlled. And that's where my revenge took its first breath. I called the IT director, Marcus, a guy Dad always trusted, and asked him to run a full audit of outgoing emails from Lucas's office for the last 48 hours. He didn't even hesitate. On it. An hour later, I had everything. Timestamps, email copies, the exact distribution lists, and worst of all for Lucas, proof he sent confidential financial attachments to people who had no legal right to see them. That crossed into a very specific territory: corporate misconduct. I sat with Mr. Dorsey and we drafted a suspension order. Temporary, but public, effective immediately. But before I sent it, I needed to do something symbolic. Something that wasn't just legal, but personal. So I drove to the lakeside cabin, Dad's cabin, the one he used to take me to. The place where our relationship had started, long before Lucas ever cared about real estate or wealth or power. I hadn't been there in 8 years, but stepping inside felt like cracking my chest open. Fishing hat still hung by the door. The old tackle box was still under the window. And above the fireplace hung our last photo together on the boat, me grinning with a fish half my size, Dad looking at me instead of the camera. That picture used to be in his office, until Lucas replaced it with a glossy portrait of himself at a groundbreaking ceremony. So I took a photo of that lakeside memory, the real one, and emailed it directly to every investor, partner, and board member. Underneath it, I attached Lucas's email misconduct report, and then I hit send on the suspension order. Within minutes, my phone started vibrating nonstop, messages from board members saying how we support you. One from an investor: Lucas is done. Tell us when you want him removed permanently. But the best one came last. A single text from Lucas: You think this is enough to stop me? You have no idea what you've started. His rage was so loud I could practically hear him shaking. But for the first time in years, I wasn't scared. I was steady, because now I knew exactly where to strike next. And this time, the whole world would see it. Update 1. Hi again. I didn't plan on posting this soon, but holy hell, some of you had me wheezing. First off, shout out to the person who commented, "Girl, sue him into the Paleozoic." Honestly, tempting. A lot of you also said Lucas sounded like the type to throw a stapler at a board member. And yeah, based on the paperweight situation, you're not wrong. But the big thing I kept seeing was, "Emma, protect yourself. He sounds unstable." Yeah, I know that now. Also, whoever said, "This man is about 3 bad decisions away from throwing himself through a glass door," I need you to know I spit out my coffee. Anyway, thank you. Seriously. Hearing strangers validate what I've lived with my whole life, it helped, more than you know. But things escalated again, and fast. After I sent the suspension order and exposed his email smear campaign, I thought Lucas would lie low, lick his wounds, try to save whatever scraps of dignity he had left. Yeah, no. Instead, he detonated. That evening, while I was still at the lakeside cabin, gathering a few old albums and Dad's notebooks, I got a frantic call from Marcus, the IT director. "Emma, you need to get back to the main office, now." My stomach dropped. What happened? "It's Lucas. He showed up here. Angry. Really angry." I sped back into town like a maniac, heart pounding. When I got to Robert's Properties, the lobby doors were wide open, one hanging, crooked on its hinges. Security guards were clustered around the reception desk, whispering nervously. Inside, destruction. Lucas had gone full meltdown. He'd overturned filing cabinets, ripped art off the walls, smashed the glass conference table. Shards glittered everywhere. The receptionist, poor Julia, was sobbing as someone brought her water. "What did he do?" I whispered. Marcus swallowed hard. "He demanded access to his accounts. We told him he was suspended. He didn't take it well." That was an understatement. I walked deeper into the office and found the worst of it. Dad's old corner suite, the one I had planned to restore, looked like a war zone. His framed awards were shattered on the floor. His leather chair was slashed open. The model of his very first development project was crushed beneath a toppled bookshelf. But the thing that stopped me cold was the wall. Dad's wall. The one where he kept the photos of every major milestone he'd ever been proud of. Lucas had ripped them all down, except one. The portrait of himself. It was still hanging perfectly straight. I stared at it, anger buzzing in my bones like electricity. And then I heard the voice that made my skin crawl. "You shouldn't have taken what's mine." I turned. Lucas stood in the doorway, chest rising and falling, shirt wrinkled, eyes wild and bloodshot. He looked unhinged, like someone who hadn't slept, eaten, or stopped spiraling in days. "Security said you left," I whispered. He smirked. "They can't stop me. This is my building." "It's not," I said. "Not anymore." The smirk vanished. His voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. "You don't understand, Emma. I built this place with Dad. You left, and now you think you can walk in here and take everything?" "You didn't build anything," I shot back. "You inherited access. I inherited truth." He moved closer, too close, breath shaking. "You're not taking my life away from me. It was never yours." And something in him snapped. He grabbed one of Dad's broken picture frames and hurled it at me. I ducked. Glass shattered behind me. Security lunged in that instant, tackling him hard, dragging him backward as he kicked and screamed. "This company is mine. You hear me? Mine!" I stood frozen, shaking, heart pounding. Marcus touched my arm gently. "You need to press charges," he said quietly. "For your safety. And for the company." I looked at the wreckage of Dad's office and realized I had crossed a line with Lucas that he would never come back from. This wasn't business anymore. This was war. And I was done playing defense. Update 2. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did. Some of you went full detective mode, breaking down Lucas's behavior like he was a case study in a psych textbook. Others were sending recipes for revenge lasagna, which honestly made me laugh when I desperately needed it. The message that stuck with me the most said, "Revenge that heals you, not destroys you, is the real win." At the time, I didn't know what that meant. I do now. Because what happened next was the turning point I never saw coming. After security dragged Lucas away from me, in Dad's destroyed office, I filed a police report. I didn't want to, but Marcus was right. It was the only way to protect myself and the company. They issued a temporary restraining order within hours. Lucas broke it 2 days later. At 3 in the morning, I woke up to banging on the door of Dad's cabin, the place I'd been staying while sorting through the mess. Violent pounding, the kind that shakes the frame. I froze. Then I heard him, slurring, loud, furious. "Emma, open the door. You ruined my life." He sounded drunk, or desperate, or both. I grabbed my phone, hid behind the couch, and whispered to the 911 operator. Deputies arrived fast. Small towns move quicker than cities, and they found Lucas outside, red-eyed, disheveled, screaming at the night sky. He was arrested on the spot, seeing him shoved into that police car, mumbling nonsense. I didn't feel triumph. I felt grief, real grief, because he wasn't just my enemy. He was still my brother, a broken one, a dangerous one, but still part of the same story. After the arrest, something unexpected happened. People rallied behind me. Employees, investors, even some extended family who had once whispered at the funeral. They apologized. They admitted they'd believed Lucas's facade for years. They said my father would have been proud of how I handled everything. And then Mr. Dorsey, a man who had seen every ugly side of our family, told me the one thing that finally cracked me open. "Your father knew Lucas was spiraling. That's why he made sure you'd have the reins. He believed you'd lead with integrity, not ego." That night, I sat at the lake's edge with Dad's old fishing hat in my hands. The water was calm. Moonlight on the surface looked like brushed silver. For the first time in a decade, I felt like Dad was there with me again. Not the distant man who didn't return my emails. Not the exhausted businessman. But the father who woke me at dawn to watch the fog roll off the water. A week later, Lucas entered a court-mandated treatment program for emotional instability and alcohol abuse. I didn't block it. I didn't fight it. If anything, it was the first real chance he'd ever had to fix himself. Roberts Properties, now under my leadership, launched the William Roberts Art Education Foundation last month. The first scholarship went to a young girl whose painting reminded me of the colors Dad always said I could see. As for me, I'm still rebuilding, still healing, still learning how to be the person Dad believed I was. But I'm not scared anymore. And for the first time since I left home 8 years ago, I feel seen, I feel chosen, I feel loved. In the end, Dad didn't just leave me a company, he gave me my life back.